All right, ready to dive into some seriously complex AI issues today.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're talking politics jobs even. What happens when AI can perfectly mimic your voice?
It's crazy how AI is kind of forcing us to face these questions, right? Like questions we never would even thought about a few years ago.
Right. It's like AI is holding up this mirror to all of us and saying,
Yeah.
okay, so what are your values? What are your limits?
Yeah, exactly.
So the material we're looking at for our deep dive today is from an episode of AI Debates, which, as you can probably guess, really digs into some of the biggest controversies around AI.
It's a great show.
It is.
So we're basically going to be your AI debate decoders.
Great. We'll sift through the arguments,
Yeah.
pull out the most interesting and thought-provoking points.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so let's start with how AI is impacting, the world of politics. AI Debates talked about Jan LeCun, he's Meta's chief AI scientist, and he argues that social media platforms should really be pushing for political neutrality.
No favoring one side or the other.
Yeah.
Now, at first glance, that sounds, pretty reasonable.
Sure, yeah.
But the real question is, can AI ever actually be neutral?
Right.
AI systems, they learn from all the data they're given, and that data, it often has human bias baked in.
Yeah, it's like you can't bake a completely neutral cake if the ingredients you're using already have a really strong flavor, right?
Yeah. So even with the best of intentions, that whole neutrality thing might be more like a dream than something that can actually happen.
Exactly. And AI Debates used a really great analogy. They said that trying to find a perfectly neutral AI is basically like looking for a unicorn.
A unicorn.
Yeah, beautiful idea, but, doesn't actually exist in reality.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so that's one side of it. But then AI Debates kind of flipped things around and said, wait, AI could actually be a really powerful tool to fight against disinformation, especially, the kind that goes viral during elections and stuff.
Right. Right. And we've all seen how damaging fake news can be. It can actually lead to violence sometimes,
Absolutely.
But the question then is, who decides what's fake and what isn't? Do we want to hand that power over to AI?
Because that feels a little, I don't know, dystopia, like AI is calling the shots.
Totally. And that's why AI Debates talked about how important transparency is. They argued that we really need to understand how these algorithms work, what data they're trained on, and who's in control. Otherwise, we're just kind of operating in the dark.
Totally. Makes sense. And speaking of control, AI Debates also talked about how public opinion is actually pretty divided when it comes to AI's role in politics.
Right.
Some people want stricter AI moderation to try and prevent harmful content.
Sure.
But then others are worried that, this could lead to censorship and limiting free speech.
Yeah, it's a really tough balance. On one hand, you want to protect people from misinformation and hate speech, but on the other hand, you don't want to shut down legitimate political discussion.
It's almost like we need to come up with a whole new set of ethics for the digital age to figure out how to handle this.
Absolutely. And that's something that comes up throughout the whole AI Debates episode. It's not just about the technology, it's about how we as a society choose to use it, what safeguards we put in place.
Right, right. Makes sense. Okay, so we've covered how AI is, stirring things up in the political world, but AI Debates didn't stop there. They also talked about something that I think a lot of people are concerned about: jobs.
Right.
There's this big worry that AI is just going to, automate away tons of jobs, whole professions.
Yeah, the classic robots are going to take our jobs scenario. And AI Debates didn't shy away from that. They even showed some pretty striking visuals of robots doing things that used to require, human workers.
Yeah, that's definitely a little unsettling. But AI Debates also presented a more optimistic view.
Right.
They said that, yeah, some jobs are inevitably going to be lost, but AI will also create new opportunities.
Exactly. Think about jobs like AI ethicists, data analysts, people who manage and train AI systems. Those jobs barely even existed a few years ago, and now everybody wants them.
So it's not so much that jobs are disappearing, it's more like there's going to be a shift in the kind of skills people need to have to succeed in the future job market.
Yeah, exactly. And AI Debates made a really interesting point. They said, we got to stop thinking of this as humans versus machines, and start thinking about it as humans and machines working together.
Like a team.
Yeah.
But even if that happens, there's still some big questions about workers' rights in this new AI-powered world.
Absolutely.
AI Debates brought up data privacy, for example. If AI is constantly monitoring what we're doing at work,
Right.
what data is being collected,
Yeah.
and who has access to it.
That's a huge question. And AI debates argued that transparency and consent are, like, super important.
Yeah.
Like, employees should know exactly how AI is being used in their workplace and what data is being collected about them.
Yeah. And it's not just about, you know, protecting our individual privacy. It's about making sure that AI doesn't make existing inequalities even worse. AI debates highlighted that risk. You know, that if
Yep.
the people who can adapt to AI do well,
Right.
while others struggle to find work, the gap between rich and poor could get even bigger.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why AI debates emphasized how important responsible AI development and deployment is. It's
Mhm.
not enough to just, create this technology. We need to think about the social and economic impacts.
Right. It can't just be about the tech itself.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it sounds like AI debates is calling for a more holistic view
Yes.
where we consider not just like, the cool technological stuff,
Hmm.
but also the ethical and societal implications.
Exactly. They argued that we need a multi-stakeholder approach. Tech experts, policymakers, ethicists, and the public. Everyone needs to have a voice.
It's got to be group effort.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about how AI is changing politics and its
Mhm.
potential impact on the job market. But AI debates also got into something that's both fascinating and a little creepy, AI voice cloning.
Oh, yeah.
And they like went all in on it.
Yeah.
They played these audio clips of AI-generated voices, and some of them were so real, so convincing, it was kind of freaky.
I know. Some of them are like indistinguishable from the real thing.
Seriously, it's
Yeah.
wild. And that brings up these like serious questions about ownership and consent. AI debates use the example of Scarlett Johansson. She spoke out against AI being used to mimic her voice without her permission.
Right.
And it's such an interesting case because it really gets to the heart of what it means to own your voice in this digital world.
Yeah.
Our voices are so unique, kind of like fingerprints. And if AI can perfectly copy them, it makes you question like identity and authenticity.
It really blurs the lines.
Totally. And AI debates even asked if our voices should be considered, intellectual property, something that needs legal protection.
Oh.
Like imagine if someone used your voice to, I don't know, to make content you didn't agree with,
Yeah.
or even worse, something harmful or illegal.
That's scary.
Right. And that's not just like a hypothetical.
Mhm.
That's actually happening.
It is.
And the legal system is having a hard time keeping up. AI debates pointed that out.
Mm-hmm.
Existing laws, they often focus on protecting our image, but voice cloning is a whole other ballgame.
It is.
It's not just about like, don't use my photo without asking.
Yeah.
It's more like don't steal my voice, my
Yeah.
my unique way of expressing myself.
Right. Like, don't steal my identity.
Exactly. And that goes to the ethical core of all this.
Yeah.
Even if we have the tech to perfectly copy someone's voice, should we really be using it in ways that could hurt people or trick them?
Exactly. That's the question.
Okay, so things are getting pretty intense.
Yeah.
We've talked about political bots and robot workers and AI that can steal your voice.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Well, AI debates didn't give us easy answers, but they did suggest a way to think about these complicated issues. They said, we need to move past the fear and hype, and start having real thoughtful conversations about how we want to live with AI. So not just like freaking out or getting overly excited, but really thinking it through.
Yeah, like actually understanding the nuances of what could happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they made this point that it's not just a discussion for, the tech people. This is a conversation that needs to include everyone.
Everyone. Yeah.
Policymakers, ethicists, artists, you name it. And of course, like everyday people, the public.
Right, because ultimately it's about like deciding what kind of future we want to live in.
Exactly.
Do we want AI that manipulates and controls us? Or do we want AI that helps us, that makes us more creative?
Yeah. And that's where the voice cloning thing gets really interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
it makes you think about what creativity even is. If AI can, perfectly mimic human expression, does that like devalue human art?
I mean, it's a good question. AI debates actually brought up a really interesting counter-argument to that. They said that maybe AI could be a tool for collaboration.
Oh, interesting.
Like it could help artists explore new creative directions. Imagine, working with an AI that could take your musical ideas and turn them into a full-on symphony, even if you don't know how to read music.
That would be amazing. It's
Wait,
like having this creative partner who can like speak the language of your imagination.
Right. But then you run into those same issues of, ownership and control. If AI is helping you create something, who really owns it? Is it the human artist, the AI, or is it like this weird hybrid creation?
Yeah, and like what if somebody uses your voice to make something you like totally disagree with?
Exactly. AI debates really pushed the idea that we need clear laws to figure this stuff out.
We do.
It's almost like we need a digital bill of rights for our voices, to lay out how they can and can't be used in this AI world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And that brings us back to that idea of transparency and consent, right? Which AI debates kept coming back to. They said that even if someone gives their permission, there should still be rules about how voice cloning tech can be used.
So even if I'm like, yeah, sure, use my voice to create a talking dog for a commercial,
Right.
there should still be limits on what you can actually do with it.
Exactly, because the potential for abuse is just like massive. AI debates showed examples of how deepfakes have been used to, spread fake news and even harass people. It's a pretty sobering reminder that when you have powerful technology, you got to use it responsibly.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of responsibility, AI debates also talk about the role of the companies that are developing these technologies.
Yeah.
They argue that companies can't just be focused on making cool new stuff. They have to have a strong ethical framework for how they build and use these tools.
And that's where AI ethics comes in, right? Making sure that AI is developed and used in ways that align with, our values as a society.
But whose values are we talking about?
Right.
Because AI debates made it clear that there are a lot of different opinions on this. What seems ethical to one person might be totally messed up to someone else.
Totally. That's why they said it's so important to have a lot of different voices involved in these discussions. We got to move beyond, just the Silicon Valley bubble and make sure the people who will actually be affected by AI the most have a say in how it's shaped.
AI debates even encouraged viewers to share their own thoughts using the hashtag #ADebates. It was like they were saying, hey, this isn't just some theoretical discussion. This is about your life, your future. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I think that sense of urgency is really important because AI isn't something that's going to happen way off in the future. It's already here, it's changing super fast, and it's going to have a big impact on everyone.
It feels like we're at this crucial point, and the decisions we make now are going to shape what that future looks like.
It's exciting and kind of scary at the same time, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we've talked about the big stuff, the politics, the economics, the ethics.
Right.
But AI debates also zeroed in on some really specific issues with voice cloning.
Right. And one of the most interesting parts was about the legal side of things. They pointed out that the law is always trying to catch up with technology, but with voice replication, it feels even more complicated.
It is, because it's not just about copyright or intellectual property. It's about our voices as a part of who we are. AI debates even ask some really deep philosophical questions about what makes a voice unique? What makes it belong to a specific person?
It's what makes it mine?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they talked about how this tech is challenging our ideas of what's authentic and who owns what. In a world where anyone's voice can be copied perfectly, how can you even tell what's real?
That's a tough question.
It's a little scary when you think about it, especially with deepfakes. They can be used to trick people and manipulate them. It seemed like AI debates was saying, we got to be having these conversations now before it's too late.
Yeah, for sure. And they talked about some new legal frameworks that are being developed, like the California AI Accountability Act, which seems to be moving towards regulating AI more broadly.
Okay, so even with new laws, there are still these big ethical questions we have to deal with. AI debates brought up consent again, and whether there should be rules about how voice cloning is used, even when someone gives permission.
Yeah, it's tricky. On the one hand, you want to encourage people to be creative and experiment with new ways of expressing themselves.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you don't want to open the door to, people being taken advantage of or manipulated.
So it's where's the line between freedom of expression and
Well,
protecting people?
Exactly. And AI debates didn't pretend to have all the answers, but they did a really good job of presenting all the different viewpoints and encouraging people to really think about the implications of this tech.
It was like they were saying, look, this is a complicated issue with no easy answers.
Yeah.
But we need to be talking about it, we need to be informed, and we need to be involved.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're right at the edge of this huge AI revolution, but we're still trying to figure out, what the rules are. And AI debates did such a good job of showing that, especially with voice cloning.
It's like the Wild West out there, Technology is moving so fast that the laws and ethical guidelines are, struggling to catch up.
It makes you wonder, are we going to look back in a few years and be like, man, we were so clueless about what AI could actually do?
I think there's a good chance of that, yeah. And that's exactly why it's so important to have these conversations now. AI Debates was really clear about that. We can't just sit back and let the tech companies decide how all this plays out.
We have to be a part of shaping the future.
Yeah, exactly. And that means, like, demanding transparency from these companies, pushing for responsible development, and making sure our voices are heard.
Because it really feels like we're all part of this giant experiment and no one knows how it's going to end.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so exciting, but also, a little scary.
For sure. AI debates definitely gave me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It's like they opened this door to this whole new world full of both possibilities and risks.
Yeah, I thought they did a great job of explaining how complex AI is without, like, oversimplifying it or trying to scare people.
They found that sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
Acknowledging the risks, but also being excited about what AI could do.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's the takeaway here. AI isn't good or bad on its own. It's a tool, and like any tool, it depends on how we use it.
So it all comes down to the choices we make.
So, like, as you go about your day, pay attention to how AI is already a part of your life. The recommendations you see online, the voice assistants you use AI is everywhere.
Yeah, it really is.
And ask yourself, how do you want AI to be used? In your own life, in your community, in the world?
Yeah, that's a good question for everyone to think about.
Because the future of AI, it's not something that's just happening to us. It's something we're creating, all of us, together.
That's a powerful thought. So let's keep this conversation going. Let's question everything, explore the possibilities, and work together to build a future where AI is a force for good. And that's it for our deep dive into AI debates. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged,